I'm Jake,
I'm Chris.
and our project is on how social media affects our perceptions of ourselves and of our friends and the world around us.
So kind of the question that we wanted to expand on kind of in this project through our interviews and our research was kind of mainly how social media and even regular media in contemporary society kind of shapes the way that we view ourselves. So one thing that kind of interested me about this topic, why I wanted to kind of explore it a little bit through interviews, was because I think that in our society today, with everything, cell phones, we always have video, such quick access to information, that it's interesting to see how our society kind of reacts to all these new technologies that are making themselves available, and kind of how we view ourselves as a human race differently as a result of things like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So that was kind of, for me, one thing that I thought was very interesting that I kind of wanted to explore in this project.
One thing I thought was very interesting, and I think about, is that people my age are the last generation of people who will ever exist or will be born into a primarily non-digital society. And throughout my lifetime, the growth of the internet and social media through MySpace, Facebook, MySpace wasn't even around 10 years ago, I don't think. So it's been such a short time span when all these changes have been happening, and I don't think we really know all the effects of what these new technologies we have are. And I wanted to kind of see what the research had to say about the issue, and also what people my age who are grappling with this transition, how they have managed to, or how it's affected them.
So let's talk a little bit about the research that we did for the project. So we kind of explored, how people in today's society, mainly the college-age students like ourselves, young adults, kind of, how social networks are changing the way we think about ourselves, how we think about others. So a couple facts that we found: every 24 hours, more than 250 million posts are shared on Facebook. This is not including other social media sites like Instagram or Twitter, or even blogs per se. And 80% of these posts that people make are about themselves. And this kind of brings up a couple different points. The questions that we aim to explore, is through our interviews, is why people choose to share this information, despite 90% of Americans think that people share too much information. So what we kind of wanted to explore is why people in fact are willingly sharing these information about themselves and posting pictures out there for everyone to see in cyberspace, and kind of their reasoning behind it, why it's kind of taken hold of our society, where we can pull out our cell phones and see a picture of somebody miles and miles away, and it also almost turned into like a figure. So that was kind of what we wanted to explore there.
And then I researched a lot of the psychological factors that maybe not directly applying to social media, but we know from relevant literature that certainly impact how we view others and probably interact with social media. One of those things was faceism, using facial features to shape impressions of someone. And the theorem's called face familiarity over generalization. It's letting facial features of people you know impact people you don't know. And that also expands into episodic familiarity, which is that the more you see a face, the more you're going to attribute to them positive characteristics, be it intelligence, kindness, things like that. And I wonder, with all the photos on Facebook, Twitter,
even regular media,
is this shaping our impressions of people? Do we have skewed impressions of our friends based off of psychological characteristics like this?
So another piece of information that we found dealt with Instagram. It was a study done by the University of Madison, and it kind of analyzed the way Instagram photos are photoshopped or filtered, and kind of how it can change a person's appearance, and kind of make it more appealing to others. Also, the fact that people are constantly posting good things about themselves. They feel like they have a rapport to keep up almost, and it kind of creates this breed of culture where people are constantly feel like they're under the microscope and they have to kind of keep up their reputation and post more. And it actually is kind of damaging to the psyche. People aren't going to post negative things about themselves. So when you go on and look at these things, all it is beautiful beaches and people on vacation and being at sporting events and happy moments in people's lives where it's not representative of their life as a whole, and people kind of feel that their lives maybe not are as comparable to the ones that they see on Instagram. It almost creates this unfathomable idea that that sort of happiness is something that can't be achieved in their own lives.
Yep. And then another sort of psychological aspect I looked at was how advertising affects our gender stereotypes. And what we found was that men are generally more frequently pictured in facial photos, very close up, while women are generally taken photographs of in wide angle, like get the full body in, and the effect of that, interestingly enough, is that facial photos are associated with competence and intelligence, and the full-bodied photos are associated with expressiveness and likability. So media is sort of contributing to this, where men are portrayed as more authoritative, more intelligent, competent. They're portrayed to be leaders, while women are portrayed in ways that minimize that aspect and make them portray them as likable, welcoming, and there's just the question of when when women struggle to break through glass ceilings, to receive the same opportunities as men, is it responsible to portray people in such a different way and contribute to these negative stereotypes?
And I really like this issue too, because I think it's so prevalent in today's society, how the different sexes are kind of portrayed in the media, and kind of the ideas that people are able to form just off kind of hasty generalizations of what they see in the media, pictures of men and women, and kind of how their visual appearance is kind of exploited for people to kind of interpret themselves, and it kind of changes the way we kind of think about gender in general. So that was kind of one thing I liked about that. Another point that we found, kind of something that we wanted to research through our interviews, we found that while people are intentionally posting this information, people think they're sharing too much information, but they're kind of doing it willingly. So, and they almost don't even know kind of the audience they're sharing this information with. People have thousands and thousands of friends on their social media sites. But I'll let Jake take this one.
Yeah, I looked into some of the aspects on interpersonal relationships, and one thing I came across, it's called Dunbar's theorem, and it's that the human brain is only capable of maintaining intimate social relationships with about 150 people. And that brings up the question, when your brain is limited to really only caring about 150 people in your life, why do we have thousands of friends, and why do we expose ourselves to so many people and latch on? And that's something that before social media, was never a concern, because there was no capability to do it. And now, it's kind of wondering what all these weak social acquaintances, what that means for the strong, intimate bonds that we generally try to build with our families. And another issue that researchers have worried about is the internet making it so easy to artificially, at a very surface level, befriend people? Are we spending less time on the people who really matter around us and who we should really be caring about? And are we going to grow up in a society where we lose the intimate relations that have traditionally been the most important to us?
Another kind of issue branching off, these strong and kind of weak ties that we can form through the internet is that, people are friends with so many people on Facebook, but they may not be close to them, as Dunbar's theorem would kind of suggest. But it's almost that people in our generation aren't even cognizant of who exactly is viewing this information, and kind of, the implications that, what they're posting and can actually affect their futures. So one thing that we kind of explored a little bit was, the role of social media in pre-employment screening. 2 of 5 employers have actually said that they use social media to kind of, screen their potential candidates and make a decision. Some facts here: 65 say that they screen. So 65% of businesses in a study said that they had screened social media sites to fit a company's to evaluate the candidate's professionalism. 51% say it was mainly to kind of evaluate whether or not they'd be a good fit for the company culture, and 45% say that they actually have not hired somebody because of things that they have seen on social media, which kind of, that's almost half of the candidates just kind of ruled out right away, just based off, some pictures or information that they kind of posted on their social media sites. And it's kind of created a thing in our society where we're not even cognizant of, how what we post now is visible and out there forever, and the implications that, they have on the future.
And a lot of people worry in this day and age about the public sector intruding on their lives, and they worry about spying with the NSA, CIA. They worry that people are listening in on them, but at the same time, all the information anyone could ever need, a lot of people provide themselves on the internet for the world to see, and that stuff's never goes away. And Facebook, Google, they all make a substantial amount of their revenue off of selling that personal information. So I think that maybe an undertouched topic is, are we worried about the level that the private sector will know about us, how much businesses will know? Is there any such thing as privacy anymore? Or is that just something we're going to have to adjust to in this digital world?
So those are kind of, our main research topics, things that we kind of wanted to explore through these interviews. So mainly the reason why we wanted to do interviews, we kind of wanted to, talk to human sources, obviously, people who, are part of the society, college-age students who have kind of, made the transition into the digital age, and kind of, explore their own experiences with social media and how they feel maybe their perceptions are skewed as they kind of move into this digital society. Also kind of to explore the research topics that we had found, kind of get their opinions, whether or not they agreed, whether or not they saw it in their own kind of experiences here in the digital society, and kind of compare and kind of analyze their answers to our research, and make ourselves all a little bit more informative about the topic.
Yeah, I think you said it great.
Thank you.
All right.
Hope you enjoy. All right, so kind of the outline of our project basically deals with use of social media, kind of the way social networks are changing the way we think about ourselves. Okay, so a couple facts that we have for you. Every 24 hours, more than 250 million Facebook posts are shared on Facebook. This is not including other social media sites like Instagram or Twitter, where users are able to share information about themselves. And 80% of these posts are about themselves. So I suppose our question for you is, why do you think people like choose voluntarily to share so much information about themselves, online and put it out there?
I guess from my experience, a lot of people that posted it, people that don't really aren't that really big of extroverts in person.
Okay.
They talk more on social media as their way to channel like stuff. They don't really talk that much. They're more shy.
Yeah, sure.
So it's their way to channel there.
Do you think that almost like inhibits our ability to like make face-to-face contact through social media?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think so.
Do you think that by sharing so much like on social media that it changes how people perceive themselves?
Yeah, I would say that. I guess a lot of things are more physical because if you're like, pictures and stuff, like people are more like worried about how they look and stuff as opposed to just like I mean that's like it's like a picture on Facebook. Like you'll just look at it as opposed to like in person you can get like more personality.
So, like, why do you think? You think kind of like likes, like the idea of likes on Facebook, it can give people the idea, that they're like more popular than other people, or like how do you think that kind of like fuels like either self-esteem, either like for the good or for the bad?
I definitely think it. I think it probably is a good thing, but it could be used as a bad thing. I mean, girls could I feel like girls and guys use it as a thing to be like I'm better. Like I got more popular. I'm more popular. More people like what I'm saying. People agree with me.
Sure.
So yes.
Okay.
And with pictures, I guess it can like fuel somebody's self-esteem more.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So do you think that with people posting so much, do you think that social networks change how you view other people?
No, not really. Unless they're like posting like depressing things on there like all the time, or like posting gaudy pictures of themselves up all the time. Then I guess that's like the only way.
Have you ever heard of facism?
No.
Facism is kind of how you use facial features to sort of develop perceptions about someone's personality characteristics. And some research has been done on a phenomenon called face familiarity overgeneralization. So what that means is that you let facial features of people impact how you perceive strangers based on their facial features. So one of the things that happens is the more that you see someone's face, the more you like them, and you begin to attribute positive characteristics to them that you have no reason to believe they have. So one thing that they found was that people who, if you were shown someone's picture like 10 times, you'll begin to think that they're more intelligent, more personable. So with so much being shared on Facebook and other social media sites, do you think that maybe has, this phenomena has skewed your perceptions of the people around you?
I guess it could have, like subconsciously, without me really knowing. But overall, I'm not really sure because I guess it seems like it'd be something that you don't really notice yourself. But I guess if reflecting back on it, I can see how it seems like viable, true.
Sure. Also, in terms of like kind of like the way the media kind of portrays like celebrities or like athletes, do you have any thoughts on that? Just kind of how they try to like glam them up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely use like the more that you see them on like social media, the more I guess it makes them. What's that? What am I looking for?
More appealing.
Yeah. Like you see them more often, you become more familiar with their face, and it's an easier face to look at, I guess.
Sure. Okay, cool. So this is one article we found talks about how Instagram, scrolling through images on Instagram can damage your psyche, kind of the way which is kind of like the way you view yourself. This is a study done at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. These photos, are significantly edited and filtered. What's kind of like your experience on social media? Do you see a lot of pictures that people are posting that are edited? And what kind of ways do you think that changes the way people kind of like interpret or see the person who's posting stuff like that?
The more like the people post about themselves and more pictures of themselves, like selfies, like girls like do like have a crazy thing with selfies. Definitely feel like they're trying to get attention.
Sure.
And have people like constantly look at them, and the girls like post like with all like 1,000 hashtags to get more people to look at them.
Sure. So this was kind of part of the study too, that people are posting selfies or posting pictures about themselves, on social media. and it kind of breeds the culture where they're always being looked at, so people almost feel like they have to kind of put out their best representation of themselves online. So it kind of breeds itself in its own way, which is interesting. Let's see, moving on to our next point here.
So another thing, kind of touching on social media and advertising portrayals, is kind of how there's difference in how the different genders are portrayed, especially in advertising. And one of the things we found was that men are generally portrayed like with a close-up facial shot, while women are generally more like the full body portrait in advertising campaigns. Basically, what that was found to do was that facial portraits are associated with higher perceptions of intelligence and capability. So these advertising campaigns were sort of subconsciously, making men seem more intelligent and capable, while the full body portraits were associated with likability and expressiveness. What do you think about why that is? Why the different genders are portrayed that way?
I think just like as culture, in our culture, women are more viewed at as like the graceful things. So, like they use like the whole body, and I guess women are care more about their bodies, I guess, as a whole, and guys are more like just like whatever. And so like if it's just a facial shot, like it does just display intelligence. And I guess in our society, like I don't want to sound like sexist or anything, but guys seem to be more like taking the leadership roles, like the CEOs and politics and stuff like that. So to view them as more intelligent.
Do you think the media has anything to do to like kind of fuel that perception?
Well, yeah. I mean, with the research done, and it's just like showing that they do that toward like to do the facial shots just to make them seem more intelligent.
How do you think women are portrayed in the media? Like from your own experiences, how would you kind of interpret that?
I feel that women are portrayed in the media more for, I guess, their physical appearance.
Sure.
As opposed to what they're actually like, the purpose is.
Sure, I agree. Okay, so now back to the whole social media aspect of this. So we've gotten to the point about how people are voluntarily posting all this information about themselves, pictures, whatever they may be doing in their pictures. But another study that we found that says while we are intentionally posting this information, 90% of Americans think that other people post too much than they should. And it kind of brings us to the point where, why do we choose to post this information, and why do we choose to share it with so many people? Looking at the issue of like how many friends you have on Facebook, people add friends that are outside their social network. So what are your kind of thoughts on that? Why do you think people add friends who they might not be as close with, or actually share a relationship outside of like cyberspace with?
I feel like just to get information out. I mean, just from my personal experience, like in my fraternity, I like friend other guys who I don't really know, but just trying to attract them to come join our fraternity and stuff like that. So I guess a lot of information to get spread out and advertised. But with our own personal stuff, like me like posting a picture or something like that, I feel to I guess share with like what's going on in your life with people that you don't really get to see every day. Because I go to school in Florida, so like I don't get to see a bunch of my friends back in Illinois too much. So then like posting pictures, like they can see what I'm up to and see I'm fine.
Would you say that that you have good social relationships with a high percentage of your friends on Facebook?
No, probably no. I probably actually talked to like only 100 out of my friends.
It's interesting you'd say that number because it's called Dunbar's theorem, and it's that humans, because of their the size of our brains and various characteristics, are only capable of actually maintaining about 150 real social relationships.
Right.
And after that, it's kind of these people you don't really care about them that much.
Right.
Would you say that that's basically your experience?
Yeah, I mean, with my last response, about like I said, I only really talked to or know about 100 people. I get about 150 probably makes sense too. So yeah, I definitely could see.
And another study sort of brings up, it's kind of touching on why we have so many friends when we can only really have strong ties with a few, is that the internet has made it so much easier to, invest time in developing weak relationship ties with people who we normally wouldn't really consider investing time with. do you think that this is maybe, while you're spending so much time on these people who aren't as important to you, do you think that it's compromising the time you could spend on people who are more important?
Yeah, because like sometimes I'll notice when I'm at school, I'm just like scrolling on Facebook when I could be like calling my mom or like some of my aunts or my brothers, but just chilling on Facebook, just scrolling through.
Sure.
So
Awesome. Well, I think that about wraps up our interview. We got pretty much everything we wanted to ask out of the way, so thank you.
Word, no problem.
All right, so basically kind of what our project is about. Social media, its prevalence in society today, and how kind of social networking and other social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is kind of changing the way we think about ourselves, also the way we differently think about other people, the way we interpret what people post about themselves, and the impacts of these kind of things on society. So a couple facts. Start off the interview. Every 24 hours, more than 250 million Facebook posts are shared on Facebook. So this is not including other social media sites like Instagram or Twitter, where users are able to share photos and information about themselves. And 80% of these posts that people make are about themselves. So one question for you we have is, why do you think people choose voluntarily to, put pictures of themselves on Facebook, to put, document their lives and kind of show everybody else? Where does that kind of, desire and need for that to come in?
Well, I think people post a lot about themselves on Facebook is generally just for attention. People love attention. I know I've done it before, and it's always a good feeling when someone likes your photo. It's kind of just an ego boost. So I think the main thing that people do is post for attention. People like having the spotlight on them once in a while, so I'd probably attribute it to that.
Sure. So a study we found, actually kind of going off some of your answers here, found that it was through the University of Wisconsin-Madison that people were actually becoming, kind of getting this idea after viewing Instagram photos that other people's lives were actually better than their own. So would you say that, everything that people post on Facebook is an accurate representation of, who a person is or who they are?
Yeah, not at all. I would say I think there's so many ways you can manipulate photos, and allowing people to see certain photos versus other photos doesn't really give a person accurate information about your life. I know it's really easy to post several great photos of you to make it look like your life is a lot better than it is, but I think just a strand of photos isn't going to be able to tell your whole life story.
So the study actually says that people were finding that, after looking at everyone else's, happy moments on Instagram, that, people kind of found their own lives unappealing. They kind of felt that they weren't, their lives weren't as exciting. So what do you think that kind of breeds this culture that people are being always analyzed and looked at? What do you think is the kind of effect of that on society?
I think people just become more self-conscious, and also at the same time they start comparing their own lives to other people's lives, which isn't very fair because social media doesn't allow you to see the whole scope into their life. It only takes certain moments, and usually those moments are the best moments because they want people to think that they're really happy. And people begin to micromanage their own lives because they see such great things happening in other people's lives.
Sure.
Interesting. So you'd say that, social networks definitely might, create this skewed perception of what you think that people, how you think people are actually happy and what their lives are.
Sure.
One term, it's called facism, and it uses facial features to sort of like, get like an impression of how someone is. And scholars have looked into one area, one area of research is called face familiarity over generalization, which means that, you let the facial features of people that you've seen before impact, your perceptions of people you currently see based on, what facial features they have. And one thing that they found was that the more that you view a single person's face, the more that you attribute better personality traits and characteristics to them. Things like intelligence, like ability. So do you think that with, the rise with ever-increasing amounts of pictures and, profiles of people, do you think that, our perceptions of, how these people are is skewed?
Sure. I mean, I think it's going to be skewed because, like I said earlier, people always want to post something that makes them look good. So when you see someone over and over again doing something great, you automatically kind of have the self-conscious thought that they're having a great life or whatever. So I think if you keep seeing that up and up again on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever you're on, I think you're going to have misconceptions in the future because you see those facial features and then you kind of subconsciously attribute them to success or happiness or whatever the picture's showing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you say that happens in like other forms of media too, like advertising or?
Sure, I mean, it's the media's goal just to put good-looking people or intelligent people or that mix of both on TV just to make other people think like they're the ideal person, so people automatically attribute like good-looking and intelligent people to be, you know, the end-all be-all.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of like men and women in the media, how do you think they're differently portrayed, and like what kind of features, respectively towards men and women, kind of like play a big role in advertising and media?
Sure. So I think more and more on news stations today you see prettier women. I know specifically on like Fox News there's a lot of blonde anchors, but they do that on purpose because people want to watch their show, especially if someone pretty is talking. The news isn't always something exciting that's going on, so they want to make it applicable even if someone isn't that interested. And I think the same goes for men too. Like they always want some prominent face or just some memorable face, so people keep coming back
Sure.
and watching the show.
Interesting, you'd say that, a prominent face, because what we found was that in advertising in general, that men are portrayed with facial portraits, while women generally get more full-bodied photos. The effect of this being that facial portraits are generally seen to, generally make the person look more intelligent and capable, while full-body portraits influenced likability and expressiveness. So do you think that maybe this has contributed to, some gender stereotypes where men are viewed as more authoritative?
Oh yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, just from what I've seen in the media and all the marketing schemes that have been going on, is they always want some man with, prominent features that are, is very affluent or very charismatic to be talking, because I think it establishes more credibility. And I think the women are there not only for intellectual input, but also just because they're attractive and people will keep going back to the show. So I definitely think that has something to do with it.
Do you think that, the representation of men and women in the media, on even social media, is kind of an accurate portrayal of, walking around the street in everyday life?
Oh yeah, not at all. I think the media and just, Facebook and stuff like that, I know girls will post pictures that are a little bit more promiscuous here and there, and then guys, they usually don't really care about, what many other people are thinking about them. So I think girls more than guys try to influence and make it seem like they're having a better life than maybe they actually are. But yeah, I think the social media world and what you see every day on the street is two totally different things.
Sure. Okay, so kind of another fact, back to this whole social media aspect of the topic. So back to the point I said earlier, 80% of people who post on Facebook are actually sharing information about themselves, 80% of these posts. So while people are intentionally posting this information about themselves and kind of exposing this to cyberspace and everyone on the internet, 90% of Americans also think that some people post too much than they should. And that they're kind of, sharing this information with too much information with too many people. Which kind of brings up the point, people have so many friends on Facebook. Would you say that, people within, like, that you're friends with on Facebook, that you actually have a face-to-face relationship with them, in real life?
No, not all of them, I would say. I think, like you said earlier, there's way too much information that people are putting on Facebook, and it makes it a lot more dangerous for, the average user, because it's all this public information, and people who don't know you can see it, so.
How many friends would you say that, you do actually keep up with?
Have personal relationships
Yeah,
with?
like I have an actual personal relationship with.
Probably, 30 to 40%, somewhere in that range. Because a lot of those kids, I was friends with them back in the day, but now it's in college. We're in two totally different states, and relationships kind of broken up.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a theorem called Dunbar's theorem, and it says that based on brain size and characteristics of the brain, that humans are only capable of maintaining good social relationships with about 150 people maximum. Would you say that is sort of representative of your social?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's possible to maintain all these relationships, especially over Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, because it's really the face-to-face interaction. I don't think it's really possible to keep a strong, healthy relationship just over social media.
So that kind of brings us to the point. Why do you think people add all these friends on Facebook who they might not even have like an actual relationship with? Why do you think they choose to add them on their social media sites?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, but I think it's mainly curiosity and also competitiveness comes into play because people are always comparing their lives to other lives. So if they see the pictures of this person and saying they're having a really good time, or it's the other way, like, oh, this person's life isn't as good as mine, it's kind of an ego boost and it makes that person feel better about themselves.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you think that that's a valuable use of time in comparison to other things you could be doing?
No, absolutely not.
No.
I mean, there's a lot more better things you could be doing than going around on Facebook and looking at other people's pictures.
There's been a lot of research on how the internet influences the strength of our personal ties and the type of relationships we have. And a lot of researchers have worried that the internet's making it a lot easier to have a lot of weak ties with people. So you may have 1,000 friends on Facebook, but how strong are the ties you actually have with them? And they worry that maybe the time you spend on forming these weak ties comes at the expense of strong ties.
Sure.
So do you think that maybe you've spent time on these weak ties that would maybe have been better spent on people more important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Facebook and all these other social media sites does take time away. I mean, it has to if someone's using it from, spending time with your family or your closer friends. So I definitely think that statement's probably correct.
Okay. So kind of like wrapping up our last kind of questions here. Back to, people say they post too much about Facebook. Some facts here about social media and pre-employment screening. It says here that, some of our research states that 2 out of 5 employers say they use social media to screen potential hires. 65% say they screen social media to evaluate the candidate's professionalism in terms of social conduct. 51% say it is to evaluate the fit into the culture, and 45% say it's to learn more about the qualifications of the potential hire. Now, 45% of the employers who say they screen social media sites before hiring somebody say that they have actually not hired somebody because of their social media sites. Would you say that people post information about themselves and they don't know that it can be detrimental to like future opportunity, or do you think they know and do it anyways, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it can be both. I think people do realize that it can be looked at by future employers, but at the same time, people are so absorbed into this ego boost that they get when people like their stuff or whatever. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. People do realize it, but they continue to do it because it makes them feel good about themselves.
Sure.
Bit of a tangent, but a lot of the people who may be looking at your Facebook profile, they still might be older and actually not have one, and certainly may have not have grown up in with access to all these social media capabilities. Do you think that as those people age out of the workforce, do you think if everyone has dirt on them, will there be less of a stigma around social media profiles?
Yeah, I think there might be more of a stigma. I don't know, as like a young person who's always grown up with social media, I kind of think of older people using Facebook as kind of outsiders, I guess, or I don't really know the correct word I'm looking for, but I always think it's a little bit strange and that older people like my parents or even my older family members, aunts and uncles are using it, so I think it could lead to a bad stigma.
Do you think that our generation that has kind of grown up with having social media, our whole lives, ever since we were like just starting out high school, kind of interprets internet and social media websites differently than say our parents would?
Yeah, I know.
And in what ways?
Yeah, just in my case, I mean, I've always viewed Facebook and all these other social media sites just as a way to talk to friends that you're not always next to, but my parents have kind of seen it as kind of a safety or a big safety issue for me because, like I said earlier, there's a lot of information being posted and they're a little bit apprehensive because they don't really know how Facebook works. They don't have one. So I think they're always nervous, especially when kids are giving out information to people who, you don't know what their motives are. So I think a lot of parents now are getting them just to become more familiar with Facebook and realize what their kids are actually doing on it. But I know in my personal experience that my parents are really apprehensive and always warn me to be careful on Facebook.
And, it's interesting because with recent, with the NSA, becoming a topic more recently, a lot of people worry about government intrusion in their lives and sort of people, always, watching them. But at the same time, so many people post, way more information on Facebook than can be gleaned through, any other source.
Mm-hmm.
And, Facebook monetizes this and, sells that information to advertisers. So do you think that maybe the private sector intrusion is sort of an underappreciated aspect?
Well, I kind of look at it this way. I don't really mind if the government looks at my things. I think the government should do anything to keep me safe, because I know there's been a lot of instances on Facebook where people have been harmed because they don't know what that person was trying to do. So I'm okay with them monitoring me. So that's kind of my stance on the whole subject, if that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. I think that wraps everything up then.
Thanks,
Right.
Danny. All right, so John, thank you for interviewing with us today. Our outline for kind of our project here, we are going to talk to you a little bit about social media. Kind of through this interview, we kind of are aiming to get out of you is, are social networks changing the way kind of we think about ourselves? So a couple facts: every 24 hours, more than 250 million Facebook posts are shared. This is not including other social media sites like Twitter or Instagram. 80% of these posts that people make are about themselves. So our first question for you is, why do you think people feel the need to kind of post things about themselves, willingly share this information in cyberspace?
Well, I think one of the reasons is people, especially in this day and age, try to find a lot of comfort in other people's opinions about what they're doing, try to find acceptance in what people see out of them and the things they're doing in their day-to-day life. I know for me, like a lot of my parents and their friends are on Facebook, and they like to share things about, their family and how they're doing to stay connected. But I do feel like people definitely try to seek out comfort or seek out an improved self-perception based on the compliments or comments of other people on what they're doing in their day-to-day lives.
Sure. Do you think that kind of changes the way that we view ourselves, or other people kind of perceive themselves, or
Oh, definitely,
kind of implications?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see it in people like going on Facebook and checking to see how many notifications they have on like a picture or something like that. I think everyone's been guilty of it at some point or another. But I think people do like have a different perception about themselves based on what other people are saying and
Sure.
posting on Facebook.
Sure.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit about how social media affects your perceptions of yourself. What do you think it does to our perceptions of our friends?
Yeah, the perceptions of other people, that's actually pretty interesting because, well, I mean, you go on Facebook and you see everything that everyone's posting, but you don't necessarily know the social situation that they're in, or even the background story behind, pictures, posts, things like that. So you're not really getting the full story. And I think that does a lot in changing our perception of people, because you're not having the actual life experience with someone. You're just judging or making assumptions based on what they post, not the whole situation.
Sure.
Yeah. One way through our research we found that specifically impacts how you view other people. It's called face familiarity over generalization, and it's basically letting facial features of the people you know impact how you view them, and not only just based on whether you think they're handsome or something, but based personal characteristics. And what we found was that the more you see someone's face, the more likely you are to attribute like intelligence, likability, expressiveness, like a whole range of characteristics to them that they may not have. With all the photos on Facebook, do you think that maybe you have skewed perceptions of your friends in that area?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because, especially with like the world of online communication. I mean, for example, take like a guy and a girl. If a guy meets someone out at night and then they become Facebook friends or something like that, and he sits there scrolling through her pictures, or vice versa, she does that to him, they might like feel the need to, or like they might feel more attraction because they're sitting there going through that like album of photos when really they've only like met the person for 3-4 minutes.
Sure.
But yeah, I think there's definitely more of a, in your mind you're trying to form like more of a connection through that face-to-face contact. But
Sure. Okay, thanks. So a couple other things that we found. Found a study done by the University of Madison about Instagram and how viewing some of these images can actually kind of like hurt one's psyche. They can kind of make you feel as though everyone is almost having a better time than you. Is kind of the least exciting way to put it, but basically it's saying that all we're seeing is kind of a snapshot of a person's life and kind of interpreting that as what their actual life is. People don't go on Instagram and post negative things about themselves, and ultimately it's kind of breeding a culture where people always feel like they're being analyzed. They have to represent themselves like the best possible way. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of your experiences with that?
yeah, well, I think those studies are pretty interesting because like I was saying earlier, like you're not getting the full situation. So we're almost formulating this culture in which all we see out of everyone is their best experiences. We only see the times they're having fun. We're not seeing the struggles out of anyone. We're not seeing like the tougher times. And so I think it almost makes people feel like their life or their social situation isn't good enough sometimes because you're not able to see like the struggles, the bad times of people. So you're thinking, oh, everyone else is just having an amazing time all the time. Why isn't my life like that?
Sure.
So people who don't really grasp the full situation aren't really able to differ between the two.
Sure. So and it also kind of contributes to how we view other people on social media.
All right. Getting into a little bit of a different topic maybe here. Talking about gender portrayals and differences within media and advertising.
Okay.
What we found through our research is that men and women are portrayed very differently in the media. Men are generally shown with more face-in, close-up portraits, while women are shown more for full-bodied photos in advertising.
Okay.
The effect of this has been that facial portraits have been connected with perceptions of competence and intelligence, while full-body portraits generally express more likability and expressiveness. Why do you think, what's the reasoning for women and men being portrayed so differently?
I mean, that probably has a lot to do with just the history of like men's and women's rights, kind of differences and the gaps that we're trying to bridge between those two. I mean, it probably started earlier in the 20th century. With like flappers and stuff like that, and probably progress a little bit more. I think we're starting to see a little bit more of a change in those gaps, but I mean, in terms of women being shot at a full body, I think that's something that men seek after a little bit more.
Sure.
Whereas, because men are typically more interested in the physical aspect of things,
Sure.
Whereas women are looking for more of a deeper emotional connection. So maybe in advertising, that's a tool to, connect women to, like you said, the intellectual, more deeper side of males.
Definitely.
So they're probably just going after the male and female
Sure.
attraction traits.
So with like celebrities in the media, there's a lot of different opinions to be had regarding Photoshop and that kind of being represented in the media. What's kind of your opinion on how that kind of shapes the way we view celebrities and media in general?
I mean, yeah, Photoshop is obviously one of those things that's been going around a lot as of late in terms of the real images versus the finished images. And I mean, obviously, I don't think it's right that they do that. Like you said, with Instagram and stuff, there are these filters that make everyone look better. So everyone's almost involved in it, and that Photoshop could be something as simple as that.
Sure.
But yeah, it's one of those things where, again, you're trying to make you're trying to make something look a lot better than it is, and as a result, you're making people feel worse because they're trying to reach these goals that are ultimately unattainable.
Yeah, I would agree. So kind of moving back to social media now. I mentioned earlier that people who post things on Facebook, 80% of their posts generally are about themselves, pictures of themselves. But while on the counter, while we are intentionally posting all this info about ourselves, kind of willingly and kind of on our own grounds, 90% of Americans think that some people actually post too much than they should. So why do you think people, despite people maybe thinking that they post too much, why do you think they still kind of go out there and do it?
Again, maybe it's the social approval thing. Maybe it's trying to keep people updated with what they're doing. Maybe it's, I don't know, seeking appreciation for different things. But I think ultimately people do post too much, and like I don't really post a lot on Facebook or any of the social medias, but there are a lot of people who want to get their opinions out there. I know Facebook is turned from like comments and statuses more to articles, videos, pictures,
share information.
Exactly, sharing your opinions and information about things, and I think people feel the need to kind of put those out there sometimes.
Going back into the psychological aspect of that, there's a theorem called Dunbar's theorem, and it's that based on our brain size, we can really only have good relationships with good real social relationships with about 150 people.
Yep.
So, how many people do you think out like on your Facebook are you actually friends with?
So I'm probably at like 600 friends on Facebook. Every single time I go on Facebook, I tell myself I'm going to go through my friends and delete a bunch of people, but I just don't have the time to do it. I've definitely thought about just clearing out my Facebook as a whole and then only like trying to get like 150, 200 people. But in one of my classes, we actually went through that theorem, and we nowadays we're acquainted with so many people, and we have so many more acquaintances than that theorem suggests for, but we really do only have the ability to form those one-on-one relationships with, like you said, about 150 people. So I think what people get caught up in is they think that they have all these friends on Facebook, when in reality there's only about 150, and the rest are just acquaintances that through social media, through technology that we've become acquainted with, and therefore you can add like another 400 or 500 people on top of that 150.
Sure. Do you think people are kind of cognizant of the audience they're actually sharing all this information with when they post things?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're part of a generation who we don't really understand how quickly things get around, how much our opinions and ideas are really being shared, and it's definitely one of those things where people just don't realize that the intimacy issues with what they're posting are really just getting around, and they're yeah.
Okay, so kind of wrapping up our project here, kind of summarizing our interviews, kind of the research that we presented with the people we interviewed, and kind of our general consensus of what they had to say and their experiences. We felt that for the most part, our sources that we talked to kind of corroborated our research. They were able to kind of relate some of our findings back to their own experience in social media, and also kind of give their answers as to why they felt this way, kind of what kind of formed their opinions based on their own experiences, and for the most part it was corroborated by our research, which is kind of very interesting.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things was that I think that people agreed with us and sort of were on our side, not our side, but sort of saw the validity of the the research we presented to them. But at the same time, I'm not sure that any of them would change their attitudes or change their actions based on our conversations and what we said. So I think that to the extent that we've raised any problems with social media, I'm not sure that anyone who we talk to would probably view them as a problem that they need to change in themselves, while at the same time believing that for everyone it's probably a bad thing. But I'm not sure that they would take any steps to change their own activities.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So kind of running through our research, providing a little conclusive evidence as to what our interviewees had to say regarding why people choose to willingly share information on Facebook, on social media, post this information about themselves. I kind of felt that through our 3 interviews, I got the consensus that everyone felt, for the most part, that social media has now become a way for people to kind of represent themselves in a place that can be accessed by anyone. It's almost like they're able to post their pictures, and it can be compared to that of like a tabloid photo in a magazine. It's become a way for people to kind of gain exposure and gain attention by spreading and sharing their information, by spreading and sharing their pictures and their videos and their life experiences. It's kind of a way for them almost to get attention. Just kind of that's kind of how I felt. Most of our interviewees had answered the question.
Yeah, I would agree with that and say that the psychological findings that we found, I think it didn't really, it's hard to say that it applied to anyone because of the nature of the findings, but I think that certainly, especially with the facism, that people agreed they might have some certain perceptions of their friends that maybe are not warranted and represent some forms of exaggeration or misconceptions about the people around them. To the extent that this is a problem, it's really hard to say. And I think that sort of works out. I think that applies to most of our project, is that it's hard to decide, what if there's a problem, and if there is, what to do about it, given the pervasive nature of digital media. And it may be that it's a necessary evil that we will have to live with.
Yep, definitely. One type of thing that I kind of also picked up from the course of our interviews was that people who are sharing information and posting on Facebook, they definitely do agree that it changes the way we view ourselves. At one point, I remember that was brought up was that it allows us to gain information and exposure about somebody through a way other than face-to-face contact and personal interaction. You're able to kind of learn about somebody, what they look like, type of things they do, type of things they like, without ever having to hold an actual conversation with them. Even actually having met having met them, you're kind of able to learn about what somebody's like and kind of create like preconceived notions almost about who somebody is, just based off what they share on their web pages and their social media sites. So it really does kind of shape the way that we view others, and also the way that we view ourselves. It's definitely something worthwhile to look at in terms of social behavior amongst human society, especially in today's transition into the digital age.
Yeah, well, I hope that you enjoyed our project and hopefully learned a little something about social media and can take this with you into the future.
Thank you, Dan.